All right, and we are live this week. We've got Alan Richardson starting off Reacher that just dropped this morning or last night, as you were at what was that 3 a.m. Eastern? I don't know. I wasn't awake. I didn't start
Me
watching the first
neither.
episode till approximately like a little less than 2 hours ago. It was down to the wire. All my takes are very fresh, folks, on Amazon's new season of Reacher, season 3, based on Lee Child's Reacher novel series. This one is based on The Persuader. I think that is book 4 or 5. It's an early book, a fairly popular one. Joining us for the first time this week, we have Remington.
Hey, how's it going?
Yeah. So
New
this is
nerd
a
champ. We love to have a new nerd champ with us,
Yeah,
man.
we love to have new interactions here on Nerd Chaps and new hot takes. And so we're going to dive into season 3. We do have a lot of comments in the queue. So we'll get started with those and we'll get all of our responses to what we got going on. Let's see. Thug Dog. Reacher is just a long, drawn out, generic 90s action film. Lots of guns, lots of explosions, lots of violence, no plot substance. Okay, Remington, what do you think about Thug Dog's take there, saying there's no plot
I,
substance to a
I
Reacher?
I wouldn't say it was like a '90s action film. It reminds me more like those early 2000s ones when Mission Impossible came out. Everybody was trying to rip off Mission Impossible. I mean, that's where it more reminds me of. And, and it happens to have that the movie version of Jack Reacher was played by Tom Cruise. So I mean, it very much gives me those vibes when watching it. The
Yeah.
I agree. The plot doesn't really have a lot of substance, at least so far that I've seen. It could change over the course of the season, but yeah, I agree with the no substance part.
Yeah. What do you think about Reacher in general to being a generic action film and the
I mean, I'm not gonna disagree with the fact that there's just a lot of guns and a lot of violence and that I'm a like frog-brained man that just loves that stuff. But I do think there's a lot more substance to this than there is in like, you know, you know a generic 90s action film, right? I think when I think of generic, like, is there more substance to this than there is in like Broken Arrow? Probably. You know what I mean?
There's
Like,
it's more
you know
substance than the movie Dread with
yeah,
yeah
Sylvester
exactly,
Stallone.
right.
yeah
Right. So yeah, the Judge Dredd movie, right? RoboCop. I think there's a little more substance here than there was in
Right.
RoboCop, right?
yeah
So I mean, I could give it more than a lot
yeah
of the generic
yeah?
generic action films for sure.
I
But
feel like
um
yeah, early 2000s Mission Impossible. Remington had a good take because the hyper competent, super intelligent hero that's like 7 steps ahead of everybody around him became popular at that time where he's so much smarter than everyone else that everyone else kind of looks slow. Now that hasn't been on huge display in these first 2 episodes. The first 3 are out. We've watched 2. But the
well, we're reviewing too.
we're reviewing 2. Tim, I think,
Yeah,
is
we're
is,
gonna
is one
review.
ahead. I have read the book, but I've only watched 2 episodes. But the hyper intelligence was more on display in season 1 early
Hmm.
than it has
Yeah.
been so far now. And then I think season 2 he didn't really get to show off quite that level of hyper competence that he did in the first season. But yeah, it does feel very early 2000s as opposed. And even though Alan Richardson is a huge dude, it doesn't have like the Arnold. It's not Commando. It's not that simple. It's
Yeah.
not that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
So
this isn't First Blood. It's
yeah,
not man kill man. It's more than that. Okay.
Anthony Michael Hall sighting, and he can describe the ruckus.
We have talked about Paul Gleason and when we've had Paul Gleason sightings before and how he heard the ruckus. Now when we see Anthony Michael Hall, he can describe the ruckus. That is correct. We're huge Breakfast Club fans here, and we have to point it out every time one of them is on screen. Okay.
now, now, what's
So
your go-to for young Anthony Michael Hall, Remington? Do you go to Breakfast Club or do you go to like Pretty in Pink, 16 Candles? What jumps into your mind when you
I,
see
I
him?
I would say Breakfast Club's a little bit more iconic for me.
Yeah,
and I think it's a little bit more my style. I think Pretty in Pink is just not for me, So
Yeah.
I would go with Breakfast Club. Yeah.
Now, has he ever played a heel before? I don't remember that, and he's doing a really good job in this so far.
Yeah.
But it kind of feels like a red herring. It feels like he's not really the guy in charge. Does it feel that way to anybody else? I
Yeah.
mean, I know Angel kind of vomited that in episode 2, and we'll probably get to that. But I think so far he's doing a really good job of playing the bad guy, which he hasn't typically done. So,
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
I think he's very mysterious. It makes you want to know more about him.
mhm.
It keeps you wanting more. I don't think
Mhm.
he's the issue I have with these episodes.
Yeah. There's
Yeah. Him
layers.
and Alan Ritchson are not the issue. I agree.
Alan
And
Richardson's one of my favorite. I was so happy to look up and see he's in there.
yeah,
I loved him in Titans. I loved him in Smallville. He's a
yeah.
really good
Blue
actor.
Mountain State, all that
Blue
stuff.
Mountain
He's
State,
he's
yeah.
great. Yeah,
He's,
he's
Yeah.
great.
and he
So
portrays the action scenes here very well.
yeah. He nails that. And there we go. Barry Allen is slow. I am enjoying it so far. Is Alan Richardson as Jack Reacher the best adapted role of the 2020s? So is that some of the best casting we've seen in the 2020s? I think you'd be hard pressed to find a better.
I mean, if we're including voice acting, maybe J.K. Simmons as Omni-Man is a good
Ooh,
one,
yeah, that's a
right?
good one.
I mean, there's
Yeah.
there's a lot of them that are probably dead on right there. But I mean, who's a better one that fits the role? I guess that's kind of the question. That's the 2020s. That's kind of a limited sample size.
I think he fits the role better than Tom Cruise.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. I know fans of the book.
Is there? I guess the question should be: was there a worse casting than Tom Cruise as Jack Reacher? Because of the way Jack Reacher is described, it just makes you think that he's supposed to be this,
Yeah.
Hulk of a man, and so
Right.
it's kind of funny.
Yeah. I did I started reading the books after the first season of the show, so I wasn't a long time
Yeah.
into the books, but I remember how angry fans of the books were when the
Oh, yeah.
movies came out with Tom Cruise, and now I know
Oh,
why.
absolutely.
Page upon page of every book is dedicated to just how huge Jack Reacher is. He's like this intimidating feature. Like the way he stands out in a crowd and how intimidating he is like a major plot point in any number of the books. So when you've got little Tom Cruise,
He's supposed to be described as his ex-military guy. Alan Richardson looks like he's ex-military. He looks
Yeah.
like he's not a guy you want to fuck with. You see
Right.
him on the street, you're not
Yeah.
going to want to go mess
Oh, yeah.
with him.
yeah, 'cause
Yeah,
he's also
yeah.
got that military bearing, that like squared away look that ex-military people have.
Mhm.
And
You know,
what's really funny about Alan Richardson is, as big as he is, he's not that big in real life. Like, they have done a very brilliant job of the sets and the camera work. You notice how his head is like right close to every door hang and everything.
Mhm.
That's not really how tall he is. I mean, he's only like 6'4" or something like that. He's not outrageously tall. So they do a really good job with the camera work, the directing, the sets, the other actors, the way they kind of make him a little smaller in front of him and everything. They do a really good job to make him look a lot bigger than he actually is. And then, of course, the fact that he's just built like Zeus just makes it all come to life. So,
Right.
so it's great. But yeah.
okay. John Snow knows nothing. Will this season premiere beat season 2's 1.2 billion streaming minutes for premiere week?
I think that's going to be a tall order because I don't think they promoted this one as much as they did the last one. So they had 3 episodes last time too. So the streaming minutes are all going to be factored into that. So I didn't check the run times to them or anything, but yeah, I think they're going to be hard pressed just because they didn't do as much promotion. Maybe we'll see. What do you think, Ronnie?
Remington had a point. What was that?
It's got 100% tomato meter on Rotten Tomatoes. It's getting positive reviews mostly. So it might do well. People might hear about it through the review circuit. So it's a possibility. It could, but like you said, I haven't seen it promoted very, very much as I've seen the other seasons promoted.
I want to say during the Super Bowl is when I saw the promotion last year for the lady at the ATM machine. Is that right? Is that when they launched that premiere? And I thought like to myself, oh, Reacher's coming out or something. And I remember that, and because I remember that trailer and that promotion, and then the season 1 promotion where he's sitting there eating the pie. I don't remember it. Did they even drop a trailer for this season? Did anybody see it? I don't remember
The Super
seeing.
Bowl?
I saw it on various streaming things. I mean, I use a Fire Stick
Yeah,
as my streaming device. So, I mean, it's Amazon. So when I fire up the Fire Stick on the homepage, it plays the Reacher trailer
the
there.
trailer does it. Okay,
I'm not
I haven't
good at
seen one, so yeah.
knowing where the trailer in this one wasn't really quite. It was the scene in, I think it was episode 2 with him and Paulie where they do the arm wrestling and
Yeah.
he lets go.
Yeah,
That was
yeah,
in the
okay.
that was in the trailer.
I
Gotcha.
saw it advertised over Facebook and TikTok. I didn't really see it anywhere else. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm an
So,
avid TV person.
so maybe they
Yeah,
think
yeah.
that riding on the momentum, they might feel like they don't need to spend that promotional money to get the
That
word
might
out.
be true.
Maybe they
That might
got
be
their
true.
fan base. But I do know I like season 2. I mean, this might be a good question for you guys. I know that season 2 was unpopular among a large segment of season 1 fans. A lot of people who really enjoyed season 1 were not as big a fan of season 2. I liked season 2. So running off of momentum might be a bad idea because they might have lost some in season 2. Did you guys like season 2? How did you feel like season 2 stacked up to season 1?
Go ahead, Remington. Had you seen season 2? Go ahead.
I've seen parts of season 2. I didn't really watch it all the way through, but I was catching a little, playing catch up today and binge watching a lot of the episodes just so I kind of knew what I was talking about coming on here, and I enjoyed what I saw,
Yeah.
and I talked to my brother, and he was, when I told him we were talking about this, he really liked the first 2 seasons and was excited for the third one. So I haven't heard really anything negative about season 2. How did you feel about it?
What I would say is season 2 for me, I think season 1 kind of made season 1 kind of set the stage a little bit, and it kind of made a kind of a story that in isolation was a little better. When you got into season 2, the problem for me was a lot of the stuff that we had kind of identified about Reacher was kind of falling apart on a base level, about him kind of being an isolationist and working alone and kind of a drifter and all that stuff that we saw in season 1. And we learned that he helped this big team in the army, and so he helped build this big team in the army, and so it was a little different, but I actually really liked it. I think that the story was really cool. The great thing about this, because it's adapted from a novel, the episode hooks are fantastic. They have been throughout, from season 1 all the way through the episodes that we watched for this today. The hooks are very, very good because Lee Child understands the end of a chapter. You got to get that hook to get them keep reading, and that's exactly what they're doing with this. It's a great way to get the audience to keep watching.
So let's go to I Am the Night. I honestly don't get the hype around this show. Everything seems so far-fetched. I don't know. An action film has to be action, or an action show has to be action, but it's more grounded than, say, something like John Wick or something like that, So
for
on
sure.
your scale,
I mean, something tells me I Am the Night probably loved John Wick 4 when he got thrown down the 250 stairs and got back up and fought 20 guys again. So, let's just leave reality at the door and just enjoy the action. I understand. I understand where they're coming from, but come on.
I was going to say the hype is built around the action. People who like action movies, who like a good action star, they're going to like something like this,
Yeah.
Those kind of spy movies or kind of military movies, that kind of thing, like Winter Soldier or, stuff like that. Mission Impossible, Tom Clancy. Yeah. It's all that kind of Jack Ryan kind of that kind of fan base, you know.
Yeah, 24
sure.
back in the day,
Right.
Yeah, 24. Yep.
Yeah. So let's see. Johnson knows nothing. I love the simplicity of this show. Way too many plots in Star Wars, MCU, etc. are just all over the place. Well, that's the simplicity of following one drifter man around the country as he just drifts around. It's not
Linear
going to get
story, man.
that complicated, you know. I mean, it's
Yeah. That's what I love linear stories, man. That's one of like I said, frog brain, middle-aged man. Just show me something that's easy to follow and show me something that's entertaining, and I'm there. You know what I mean? Where people start losing me is when we start adding really complicated wrinkles to a story that doesn't need to be complicated. And it's one of the things I hate about. One of the things I've always hated about like 100-issue comic book runs is they always seem to do that. 100-issue comic book runs always put these things in that are layers on top of layers underneath layers, and they never make any sense. So that's just kind of where I've always been with it.
See, and I thought these first 2 episodes, they jumped all over the place too much. They didn't focus on getting from point A to point B to point C. It was kind of jumping around too much for me, you know?
Having read the book, I was able to follow because I've read the book, and so far this season is following the book plot fairly closely. But I will say that I feel like the show is in a hurry to give away some of the suspense and secrets and explain things that were like left unexplained for a little longer. You were held in a little bit more suspense in the book than this show is. So like the show opens in the first episode. What did you guys feel like when Jack kills a cop, just straight kills a cop and jumps in the car? Like, what were you feeling like when that happened? Like, what did as somebody who's watching the show, what did you think?
It kind of took me for a left turn at first, and then it was even shocking when you find out who was really behind it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So
we probably should have said at the beginning that this is going to be a spoilers-ridden review. We probably should have said that. I don't know if we did, Dan, but yes, you probably figured it out, folks. This is a spoilers review. Okay.
Yeah.
So anyway, but I feel like when he shot the cop, it was one of those things that made me say that was a little too impulsive for Reacher. You know what I mean? That's one of those things where Reacher didn't need to kill that guy to accomplish what he needed to in that moment, and to not verify that it's not a cop or somebody that's an innocent civilian or something like that. So it didn't really make a lot of sense to me.
Well, see, it made sense to me because he was in a rush, like he was trying to get in, get out under pressure. It seemed
a little un-Reacher-like to me, but then you kind of see what the reason behind it, that the whole thing was a setup and it makes sense. Well, then we fast forward to episode 2, in the very end of episode 2, where he kills Angel. And that is something, once again, very un-Reacher-like, okay? The question that Angel asked him that he did not have an answer to is, are you working with the cops?
Right.
Okay?
Yeah.
Reacher has 1,000 responses to that in his brain, and he couldn't come up with one. That's the one that I find a little hard to believe right there, okay? That the one that actually happened. So anyway.
But I feel like in the book, it let you sit with the idea that Reacher was just like doing some stuff in this panel van and happened to be there and actually fell into like saving this kid and actually shot that cop. It let you sit with that for longer than the show did. You know what I'm saying? It let you sit with the suspense that all of this was really happening a little longer than you sat with it in the show. Maybe I just read slow. Maybe it wasn't. Maybe I don't remember it right.
No, I agree with you. It does feel a little bit rushed, and it feels like they don't hit the beats as well as they should be. It doesn't give you enough time to let things breathe. It just kind of pushes you along, which is why I was saying it was kind of hard to follow.
Yeah.
I kind of have the feeling like if the whole first episode was the kidnapping and getting to his house, that would have been better if they would have taken a little more time with that.
Mm-hmm.
developed a relationship with the kid for a minute, did some other things to kind of take their time a little bit. But once again, the way something reads and the way something is on screen are just two different things. And so maybe it just didn't work. I don't know. But yeah, having that revealed a little more than halfway through the episode was one of those things that was like, oh, man, you know? So,
yeah, in the book, he spends a little bit more time meeting the house staff, talking to the son after they get to the house, talking to the dad. Like it feels like a lot happens before he goes to the room and dig. The reveal is the same in the book. He makes it to his room. He gets locked in. He digs the communication
looks
device
for
out of the
wires.
tree,
Yeah.
and then you realize that this is all a setup and he was going undercover. But I feel like it was like a longer time that you spent feeling like, because I mean, it's the kind of misadventure that a lot of Reacher stories start with. He's just doing some stuff and things happen around him. And you're sitting there thinking, like, did Reacher just kill a cop? And you read and feel like that for a while. And not only like in
with
the
an
book,
illegal gun, why does Reacher have an illegal gun?
In the book, the setup is even more elaborate because like the police, like there's a bigger police chase, and I think he makes the police car flip or something. And you're like, did he kill up to 3 cops? That's what you're trying to figure out. So they probably just didn't do that because it may have felt a little bit more far-fetched when you see it than when you read it. And also budgetary. Flipping cars isn't cheap. So
of course.
So I feel like they could have took a little bit more time with that, and then it probably would have made more sense if they did it slower. You just roll it out a little slower. And let's see. Oh, wait a minute, I skipped one. Let's go back. Barry Allen Slow. The hooks episode to episode are very good. I love really wanting the new episodes to drop because the hook got me.
Yeah. I really do like once again, that's just kind of the medium when you're adapting from a novel. This is something that Game of Thrones had as well, right? When you're doing a novel adaptation, those hooks are made for TV. This is why I hate when novel adaptations that have great hooks like this make it to the big screen, is you can't really do that. It's something that's really hard to do. Doing it in a series is perfect. I absolutely love what they do. There's always some big hook or some big twist or some big turn, and that just leads you into the next episode. I think it's very well done. They've done a very good job with it so far this series.
I think it does a really good job of keeping you like wanting more. And like as much as I didn't like these first 2 episodes, I wanted to see what happened next. I wanted to see where the series was going. I wanted to see more of these adventures with Reacher. And I think eventually down the line, it's building up to something bigger than that I might enjoy. But at the moment, I was not a fan, but the hooks kept me wanting to see another episode,
And I'm trying to replay this book in my mind, and it's been like over a year since I read the book. And it's a popular book from what I've read online that fans of the books really like this book. But I do believe they're going to have to insert some additional action into the plot because if you have 1 or 2 big fights in a novel, that's enough. You know what I'm saying? Because like you're into the inner workings of people's minds of a novel, so like the outward action doesn't have to be as much. You know what I'm saying? As long as you got a big action sequence towards the end, you got what you need in a novel. So I feel like they're gonna have to incorporate some additional action because that was another thing people really liked about the first season was there were tons of fights, lots of fighting, lots of action with Reacher. These first 2 episodes were a little action light.
Very dialogue,
especially episode 2. Just driving from one place to another in a van. I mean, that is a very, very, very light action episode, and I get it that there are important things that happened, important dialogue that took place, all that kind of stuff. I'm not going to say that an episode like this cannot lead to something and set up something more important later. But right now, it's very frustrating to watch when you get to episode 2, especially. So,
right, it slowed down the momentum of the first episode, you know.
yeah,
And that's like one of those things.
Yeah.
That sequence of driving that truck is it's a very tense sequence in the book, because you can really get descriptive about what you're thinking about and what's going on. And I'm driving this truck, and they're monitoring my progress, and you're worried about getting there at the right time and them not knowing that you stopped, and you can build a lot of tension into that in a book. I don't know how well, like, it was not very tense in the show. It just seemed kind of low key, kind of like, hey, meet me here. They got the like getting the solder off the lock and resoldering the lock was like a big deal in the book. It felt like a really tense thing. Like, oh, are they going to be able to fool them with this? But like, none of that tension is conveyed. And that's like when you're looking at making an adaptation, that's something you're like, okay, this was great in the book, but maybe this doesn't translate to screen. Maybe we just need to
and
do
as
something
much as good of a job as they did with that scene, as much as they could do with it, I think that is kind of where you kind of get a little bit of the disconnect with the writing versus the video, because even Reacher said it. Hey, I reasonably have about 15 minutes, a 15-minute window. Well, that was maybe like 3.5, 4 minutes. You know what I mean? They got there, they broke the lock, the dog, that was it. You know what I mean?
Now, I will get into a couple differences here. In the book, there's no dog.
Yeah.
There's no dog. Okay. So it's really tense. They have to pull over. They have to get the lock open. They have to and then the rugs are all tied with this special like binding. I'm trying to remember, like you could tell how they're tied. They have to figure that out. And they have to unroll all the rugs and put them back in the same order that they were in the book. Like there's no dog sniff. And they're like, okay, you're good.
Yeah.
They actually took the time to unroll the rugs and put them all back the way they were.
It's almost like they put the dog in there just to make the time frame seem like it was more reasonable or something. I don't know, but then they almost made it too quick. It was kind of weird. So
did kind of make for they condensed it a little. That takes some of the tension out. Also, that the dog sniffs it, and now we get back on the road.
Yeah. There's no dead body in here. Okay, so
like Reacher hands the GPS tracker to the other drug enforcement agent. Says, "You better keep moving, so that they see that my tracker's moving." And then like he gets on the road like almost immediately after him. You know what I'm saying?
I know.
Like there's like he doesn't have a huge head start on Reacher,
Yeah. And once again, we were operating with a 15-minute window. I mean, you had like 10 minutes to do that soldering, man. That's not too bad. You know what I mean? Like It seemed weird. There were a lot of things in episode 2. So let's do a brief recap here, Dan, of episodes 1 and 2, just so everybody kind of know exactly what we're talking about. So episode 1, Reacher is at a record store. He sees something that he doesn't like while he's trying to sell records, and he sees a pickup truck that's lined up ready to hit a car, and sure enough, it hits that car, and he sees a kidnapping in progress. He goes out there, he kills the kidnapper, he grabs this kid that was supposed to be kidnapped, and he ends up accidentally shooting a cop as they get away. And then we find out, later on that this whole thing, he makes it to the kid's house. The kid's dad is some big rich drug lord. All right. And drafts him in to work for them in some lengthy, really interesting interview process where he had to play Russian roulette. And then he gets to his room, and that's when we find out that whole thing was a setup. He didn't really kill a cop. There was not really a foiled kidnapping attempt. This was just his way to get in with these people because he's had his eye on them, because there's some agent that he had his eye on that used to work for the military that he knows is some scumbag. So that's kind of the setup that we had going into episode 2. And then in episode 2, basically Reacher gets put on assignment right away. He had to go get the plate number off the car that was supposedly smashed of theirs in the kidnapping attempt, so that they could find out what who it was that was smashing. And it basically, what ended up happening was, they got there, and she had switched the plates because the guy that was with Reacher was a moron, and so that they had got there and got that taken care of in time. I won't go into too much detail about that, because once again, this was a very slow sequence, just like a lot of the other stuff in this episode. And then they asked Reacher to drive a truck from one place to another place, just do a delivery shipment. And they were tracking him, and just to kind of see if he would do what he was asked. So this was kind of a loyalty test. And then when he gets back, he ends up killing Angel, the guy that he went with at the beginning of the episode, because the guy got a little too inquisitive and kind of made him pause when he said that when he asked if he was working with the cops. So that's kind of where we left it, and the end. But I mean, did I miss anything really important in there? I don't know. I mean,
there's the DEA's angle. So
yeah.
Reacher is interested because he was sitting on a bench. He sees a guy that he recognizes from the past, and it really freaks him out. He is really stopped when he sees this guy. It's a big deal. So he gets a hold of some people from the 110th to run a plate. Him calling them, that plate is flagged by some DEA agents, who then find him at his hotel. They shake down the military guy, tell him he's going to get in trouble. And the DEA is interested in the dad, this kid's dad. This is not the guy that Reacher is after. This is a whole different thing. They own the car. And so that's why in the DEA, they're running this off book, because they were following some big drug lord from California who came to meet this guy, and they recorded it on private property and got all their whole case messed up. And so now they're trying to get back. They think that maybe this guy is higher up than the kingpin from California. That's why they want Reacher in. So Reacher is after this guy from his past. The DEA is after from the guy who owns the house. The DEA has also off book sent in a CI, confidential informant, who has since been captured. Reacher has found out that as of up to that day, she was being held on the property and has now been moved.
I have a question. So the DA, the people that the person they're after, it's not the same person that Jack Reacher's after?
No. Jack is after that
He's after that. He's after that Asian guy that he saw coming out when the kid was trying to rob the lady from the bus stop.
Okay, because that's something I didn't know. My impression was they were after the kid's dad.
No. The DEA is after Anthony Michael Hall.
That's why they hired him. That's why they hired Reacher. But
not
the best Russ, but the first Russ. The DEA is after Anthony Michael Hall.
The best Russ.
Not the best Russ. Jimmy Galicki will always be the best Russ. But anyway, that's who the DEA is after. They're after Anthony Michael Hall. Reacher is after that Asian dude that he saw get into Anthony Michael Hall's car. And he had them search those medical records from, I don't know how many years back did he say? It was like 6, 7, 8 years back. What did he say? 2012, 13, that he had them searching records for a guy that had been shot in the head and almost drowned.
And
then they found the records, and the guy had amnesia. That's the guy that Reacher is after. That's who, and they're connected somehow because the car he got in belongs to Anthony Michael Hall. So
and he said he's one of the worst people I've ever known. Okay, so basically, if he killed the CI is kind of the big thing. If he killed the CI, it's going to be a really, really ugly scene, and that's something that he's kind of hinted to. So, look at this, Mrs. Nerdchamp is on here.
Mrs. Nerdchamp, Jessica. We just got done watching.
This is Dan's wife. Okay, this is Dan's wife on here,
and she says she enjoyed the first 2 episodes so far. Thriller with the anticipation and mystery. There is a lot of mystery, and that
For sure.
Now, if you've watched the first 2 seasons and if you've read the books, you do know that when he says to be afraid of this guy, he says that to Neagley. And if there's a person on the planet that Reacher is afraid of and thinks that other people should fear, it is Frances Neagley. She is the baddest of the bad of the 110 special investigators. She is like way many levels above Reacher and Reacher's own estimation of being a badass. So when he tells Neagley to be afraid, you have to be afraid. That's a big deal. So just to establish for people who don't know. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, I really think that I think so far this season there's a lot of intrigue. Okay. I'm not going to write this off on the fact that there was a little bit of dip in the action and it was a little bit slower. I'm not going to write it off on that just yet, because those things can lead to something eventually. I mean, that happened in all of my favorite shows, right? There were episodes of The Walking Dead that were supremely slow and oral, and a lot of talking, a lot of walking around, a lot of story development and character development takes place in those from time to time. Same thing with Game of Thrones, same thing with a lot of the other shows that I love. So I'm not going to write it off on that just yet. What I will say is that I think that they know this maybe in the next one, because they did set up a really good hook at the end of this one with him killing Angel. I do think that they are going to swing back the other direction, because there's really only a limited number of outcomes once a guy like that dies and gets bent in half, right? I mean, there's only maybe 2 people that work there that could probably break that guy in half, okay? And Reacher's one of those guys, right? So I don't know. We'll just have to see. But what do you think, Dan?
I think maybe we're going to get to the end of the season, and Reacher's going to tell Paulie to calm down, and Paulie's just going to calm down and just let Reacher do whatever, right? I mean, isn't that the best way to resolve an action?
It's so funny because they are like
individual.
they are two very, very like opposite individuals when it comes to like the big, strong, hulking guy. It's like you've got the calm, collected, gonna analyze everything from 1,000 angles first and then make a move, and then you've got the guy that's just gonna jump on top of you and start smashing stuff. So it's really funny that they've kind of got that dynamic going already. I think that that's a really hilarious aspect, and I'm really anxious to see, because we know they would not. This is Chekhov's gun. They would not have introduced Paulie if there's not going to be some kind of an epic clash between these two at some point, right? I mean, this is Chekhov's gun. He's here. They're going to use him. It's gonna be awesome, and I look forward to that.
He's going to tell him to calm down, Tim. They're going to follow pop culture trends.
If you don't know what he's referring to, Remington, he's talking about the end of Captain America 4, where Captain America talks the Hulk down. So anyway,
that's a whole other discussion, because I thought that was too.
Yeah. So, but I'll go over non-spoilery a few differences so far in the book, and see what you guys think about these some of these decisions they made. So the Beck family, Anthony Michael Hall and son. In episode 1, he talks to the Beck kid, like, "Where's your mom?" Mom is dead. In the book, mom is alive. She is a character in the book. I could guess at some of the reasons she some of the storylines with her, with Paulie and the head of security, Duke, I think it is. Duke. Problematic. They can be problematic in today's climate. That might be why she's been eliminated from the story. Maybe there's just too many characters to keep straight. But Mrs. Beck is alive, and another character. Now he uses her as an excuse to come and go in a few sequences in the book. So her not being there opens up like some questions about how he's going to get some things done for me. So that's a difference. What do you guys think that's a good choice? Does that add a dynamic to the father and son, like the mom being dead? that we don't need? What do
I
you
don't
guys?
think it takes away from anything.
Yeah,
No, I agree. It doesn't take away from anything. What I'm curious about is if they're going to change anything else, about Beck that makes it maybe a little more sinister. But that's
yeah.
the only thing. So we'll just have to see.
And then
But yeah.
the house in the
Mhm.
book, the house is laid out a lot in the book, similar to the show, where you go through the gates and it's like right up to the back of a cliff with the ocean in the background, right?
Hmm.
Mhm.
And they did establish that in the show also, but in the books, Reacher's window does not face the front of the house. When
Mhm.
he goes to
Okay.
sneak out at night, it's not a brick house, it's like a stonework house, almost built like a castle or something.
Mm.
And his window faces the cliffside
Mhm.
that he has to crawl out of. And so it's a lot more dramatic than just like hopping out of a dormer and having a high pitched roof
Yeah.
in the book. He's got to like do some like, speaking of Mission Impossible, he's got to do some Mission Impossible style free climbing on the side of this stonework house hanging over a cliff over the ocean in the book to get in and out of his window.
And that could have been a budget issue.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, it's probably a
I
budget thing.
I also would like to point out that the timing in that particular scene is one that makes like 0 sense
That he's
because
hanging and
Reacher
maybe
was still hanging when the door was open, and he is in the bathroom half naked when the door is completely open. It makes no sense. So anyway, I can give a little leeway, but it was pretty
and
silly
now
anyway.
Tim gets on me because I get hung up on these things and he tells me that I get too obsessed. But I really do need to give a big props to the aluminum gutter engineer contractor that installed an aluminum gutter
that can
that can
hold
support
almost
the weight.
300-pound Alan Ritchson,
Yeah, who slips and falls and is moving at a pretty decent speed,
Yeah,
right? Like
yeah,
it
that's right.
grabs that with his hands, and that aluminum gutter doesn't buckle, bend, creak, make a noise.
He can do a chin up and a backflip and get into the bathroom half naked in half a second, man. And
That is an
that
impressive.
gutter stays right there bolted to the side of the house.
That guy deserves a raise who installed
Yes.
That's
that.
right, man. Whoever that was, I need him to do the gutters on my
Now,
name.
if you
That's for
watch,
sure.
in order to increase the suspension of disbelief to make it more believable, when they do that downward shot, there were an impressive number of gutter spikes in that gutter, like
Yeah,
an
there
excessive
was.
number. If you go look at your own gutters, there are not that many nails holding your gutters to your house.
Right.
You know, they're not spaced every 12 inches. They're spaced like every 3 or 4 feet.
Yeah, for sure.
But
For
yeah,
sure.
no. If
That
Alan
was
Richardson's going to
great,
hang
man.
from your gutters, you need to.
Yeah.
Yeah, you need some steel ones.
Yeah. So yeah. So these are the kind of things that Tim doesn't think that I should pick apart, but I it does suspend just the same way Spider-Man can't crawl across the ceiling because sheetrock can't support that weight.
He's still on this. He's still on this, man. The Spider-Man can't crawl on drywall, and it's a anyway.
I'm not telling you can't stick to it. I'm telling you it can't support his weight, Tim. That's what I'm telling you.
We're talking about a man that has spider powers, Dan. Do you have to anyway?
Reacher's just a man. He's just
Listen,
a man. Why can
at
he
that point, if you want to get semantics, you'd have to argue that Lois Lane couldn't sleep with Superman and have a baby because
well, and as
that baby's coming out like a
on the Big
That's what's
Bang
happening.
Theory. On the Big Bang Theory, Sheldon Cooper has pointed out that if Superman would really fly down and go under her, the laws of physics when he tried to catch her would be that she would like actually get cut in 3 different pieces. So I know, man, like, we got to just set physics aside. Hey, man, in the movie that we just saw with Red Hulk and Captain America is a brittle-boned man that apparently can hold up a Hulk smash underneath a vibranium suit. So I get it, man.
Right?
Like,
yeah.
That I get it. There are things in every single movie like this. It's just what it is. But this is no exception for sure.
But yeah,
So
do not. I know that like almost none of you are Alan Richardson weight and size. I may exceed his weight, but for completely different reasons. But even if you are well below his weight, do not at home attempt to do pull-ups
Well,
on your aluminum gutters.
And that's the thing. Even Alan. Okay, let's just wipe out Alan Ritchson, who Reacher is supposed to be. Okay, who
Yeah.
Reacher is supposed to be, which is who is
6'8".
bigger than Alan Ritchson. You know,
Yeah.
6'8", probably close to 300 pounds. There's no aluminum gutter in the world that's holding that man when he falls like that. There's not.
I mean,
there's not. Okay.
If the aluminum gutter can't hold Clark W. Griswold,
I was just going to say that. Clark Griswold fell off of a gutter. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, come on.
Yeah. Margot and Todd's carpet got all wet because the aluminum gutter can't hold.
Couldn't even hold Clark Griswold. Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, just a bonus for the Beck's gutter contractor is what we're saying, folks.
Nothing but the best. Spared no expense. It's amazing. Yes. That's right.
So okay, the suspenseful cliff hanging, getting out of the window was a big difference from the book so far. Duke was a more imposing character in the book. Duke,
I'm not buying Duke as anything that matters.
Yeah. Now in the book, Paulie was always this big hulking monster of a person. That Paulie is very much as described in the book, but Duke was described in the book as being similar in size to Reacher, and being a little bit older and a little bit more.
They whiffed on that one,
yeah, but like a military guy. Like in the books, Duke gives Reacher clothes to wear so that he has more appropriate attire to wear. This Duke could not give Reacher clothes. You know,
there's no
that's
way.
not happening.
There's no way. Mm-mm.
Yeah.
Mm-mm.
Yeah.
I don't think that's a thing. Yeah, that's definitely not an angle that I picked up on. I picked up on this as just being the guy who's been there the longest. That's all I picked up on.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, because in the books, the deck was stacked further against Reacher because he had two. You know, he had
very big guys. Yeah,
very big guys. He had giant hulking Paulie, and then he had a sizable challenge in Duke, who was also smarter than Paulie, because Paulie was just as dumb in the book as he appears to be in the show. He's not a mental giant. You know,
I was gonna say, man, my sister tried to pull that exact same trick on me when I was in like 4th grade, and I didn't fall for it. So Paulie definitely's got a lot of space between those huge ears, man. Okay, he definitely is dumb as a brick.
Yeah. And if I remember right, Angel in the books was more of like a computer type hacker guy. And, you know, that's what more led to the confrontation with Reacher, is like he had hacked into a database and had some hard info against Reacher instead of some like weird suspicions.
Yeah, and that's kind of, like I said, that's kind of what didn't make sense to me. So that actually would make a lot more sense. I'm surprised they didn't really go with that angle, because you know, Reacher probably didn't comb every single inch of that car for tech. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And he said there's no GPS, but did he know there was no bug? Did he know there was no device? Did he know there was? I mean, you know, did he know there was no camera somewhere? Did he know they weren't watching him? You know, with surveillance. I mean, there's all kinds of things that could have happened that led to actual information. But just the guy saying, "Oh, well, you're working with the cops," and him hesitating a little bit, I was like, that's not Reacher, man. Reacher has lies on top of lies in his brain. He lives and breathes this stuff. I don't understand why he couldn't come up with something. I mean, you know, that's day one stuff if you're Reacher, right? I mean, I don't understand it.
Was it established well in the episode? Because I'm trying to look back at it, like why it would be a problem for the Audi to be there. You know, like the suspense.
Well,
I don't feel like. I mean,
he mentioned that because they didn't set off a real grenade, there would not be real evidence that somebody died in that in that car. So that's really the main thing that he said. He said there's going to be no brain matter. There's going to be no real explosion. They're going to know this is bull crap, and that's exactly what's going to lead to them knowing that this whole thing was a setup. So that's kind of what they set up in the show. I don't know what they set up in the book, but that's what they set up in the show.
Yeah. I feel like the line went by super fast though, to where like you kind of miss it. Like, why is this? Because he said, "Oh, they're gonna find a squeaky clean car," and like, well, no, it's smashed up. The glass is busted. You know, it's not squeaky clean. But
I mean, he really explained it. He the way he explained it led me to believe. The way he explained it led me to believe that they would know that it is not that we didn't set off a real grenade in the car. Yeah. So, and that somebody did not really die in there. There's no blood. There's no, there's no explosion stuff. They will know. So, but what, unbeknownst to him, the only other person that was there was this moron. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so, unbeknownst to him, this is the guy that's going to be looking at the car. Is this guy that doesn't even care, about this assignment in the slightest. He just wants to get the picture of the license plate and go home. So anyway, so
yeah. So what are you so far? Season 1, 2, 3. What do you think about the potential of this episode, this season, Tim?
Now here's the thing, Dan. So in the previous two, they were not like direct in the line of sequels, correct? So like the second season was like book 7 or something stupid, right? I mean, it was like
the first season was the first book.
That was the first book, The Killing Floor, right?
The second one, that's way down the line in the books.
Yeah.
The second season was farther down the line than this one.
Mm-hmm.
But this one is not like it's the second or third book either. Well, it might be like the third or fourth, if I remember right. But this book is,
and that's kind of what I'm getting at. So are they going the Indiana Jones route where they're kind of just jumping the chapters all over the place, and the story that we're looking at is the only story that matters? Or are they actually trying to make them like this came directly after the last season? I guess that's kind of the only thing that's confusing me right now.
They're making it like they're happening in chronological order because he's talking to Neagley. But I'll tell you, when Lee Child set out to make Reacher, he created a concept with a built-in reset button. Because when you're going to do serial fiction, it's good to come up with that. This is like you were talking about with comic book stories earlier. It's good to have something with a built-in reset button. A drifter that goes from town to town and has adventures. A super spy, a globe-trotting archaeologist. So like James Bond, yes, they happen in the order you watch them, but if you're like, I know the Daniel Craig ones kind of build on each other, but before that, when you're talking like Sean Connery,
each one was its own thing. I mean, what happened previously did not matter.
All you need to know is Sean Connery, that James Bond is a super spy. Boom.
Right.
Yeah, Mission Impossible. Ethan Hunt is a super spy. You're ready. Right. Reacher is a drifter who used to be an MP. You're ready. And then they kind of connect, but not so much so that you have to really know anything that's happened before. And that's kind of built in. So they can pick books anywhere in the sequence because the books don't build in a narrative structure where this one leads to that one leads to the other one. Sometimes the events like leave off and he goes straight into the next one. But the main plot, you could easily, that's just kind of like the setting up and ending and the epilogues kind of tie together from one book to the other. You can get the main plots. You can mix and match them in any order that you want.
So they're all kind of their own story, their own kind of continuity kind of thing.
Yeah, they're all very episodic.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and I miss that kind of storytelling. I don't know.
I do too.
Do you enjoy like an episodic thing where like the character's going to be back to normal and you could tell another one? And
I like episodic, but with a linear flow to it,
Yeah. Yeah. It just kind of builds, but yeah. So, what do you feel about this season so far? You feel, I mean, I know it didn't grab you a lot, but do you feel like it's got places to go? Do you feel like it's going to build something interesting?
I'd like to see more. I want to see at least till the end, and kind of
Yeah.
give. I'll stick with it to the end. I didn't enjoy these first two episodes, but it kept me wanting more. Kept me wanting to see how this ends up. I kind of want to see more about the guy who's running the rug shop. Kind of want to see where that goes. Kind of want to see
Yeah.
how it ties into Jack Reacher and stuff. So
Yeah. What do you, what do you think, Tim, as far as these other seasons? Do you feel like this one is going to end up being better than the second one?
Now, to be
Good as the
fair, I
first
have not watched episode 3 yet, so we'll see. We'll see how episode 3 ends up. There is one more episode in this premiere that we just didn't have time to get to today because it launched too freaking day. Okay,
right.
so but at the same time, we'll get into that next week when we review episodes 3 and 4 together. But I have a feeling that the reason they released 3 episodes together is probably because the third episode is important, and that's probably going to be more my direction than episodes 1 and 2. So we'll see. But I've been wrong about this stuff before. I'm very interested to see where this story goes, because like most of the Reacher stories, it's a lot of the wrong place, wrong time kind of stuff. But this time it kind of seems like he's got a little bit more of an underlying motivation, and I'm interested to see how all that ends up.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm very much involved. I'm gonna watch it to the very end. And Dan and I will be incredibly honest about this. If we think they nailed it, we'll tell you. If we think they whiffed on it, we'll tell you. But if we think it's somewhere in the middle, we'll tell you. But I do think that there's a lot of interesting places for it to go, and it is going to be. I think they're going to do a good job on viewership. It's a good show so far.
Right.
So, yeah.
It seems like the people who are the fans, like diehard fans, are watching it and
They love it, man.
And that's
Yeah.
really what that matters. I'm just a casual,
Yeah.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, I'm just
Yeah.
some guy that likes seeing gunfights,
Right.
So, yeah.
I think it'll be interesting to see how they tell the backstory of Reacher and the guy that he's after. And the book that's more interspersed throughout. I feel like they might go with the streaming series trope, where you have a flashback episode and you have a
Yeah.
whole episode set in the past that tells you that
Yeah.
backstory, because
You're gonna have to see that. And Reacher made it very clear he lost somebody, so that's
Mhm.
got to be something that they dig up in that flashback episode. So we'll get to that.
yeah, I have to be
Sure.
very careful about what I say about anything like that and how I
Yep.
even respond to what you say, having read the book. So
Yep.
I'm
For
trying
sure.
to like dance on some eggshells, but that's where we're at for 2 episodes in. We're all very intrigued. We are prepared for some bigger action to come.
Mhm.
So we will be back here next week to go over it. I think me and yeah, that's where you can find us. That's our next thing. Where could people find you on the internet, Remington? Where
You can find me on YouTube under the Nerd Talk podcast, where I host a weekly podcast talking about nerdy news, movie reviews, television recaps, all that. You can also find me on Amazon, Walmart, and Barnes and Noble. I have 4 books out: The Eternal
Oh, wow.
Flame, The Eternal Frost, and Homie and the Redneck. Just came out this year, so go check those out while you can.
Yeah.
Again, Walmart, Amazon, Barnes and Noble, and
Fantastic.
I'm on Facebook under Nerd Talk Podcast.
Nerd Talk podcast. So find Remington. Me and Tim will be back here next week. Maybe Remington could join us a few more times with the Reacher
Hey,
thing.
as many times you want me on, I'll come.
All right, cool. And that's us for Nerdside Champs this week. Again, also find us at Nerd Champs on YouTube and Nerd Champs ADHD for the shorts for the people like me with no attention.